I never believed in fate until the night I met Dante Moretti. It was supposed to be just another Tuesday evening at Bellini's, the upscale Italian restaurant where I worked as a hostess. The kind of place where politicians whispered over wine and businessmen made deals that never saw daylight. I'd learned to read the room to know which tables wanted privacy, which guests tipped well, which conversations to pretend I hadn't heard. But nothing prepared me for the little girl who wandered into the lobby at 8:15, her dark curls falling across tear-stained cheeks, her small hands trembling as she clutched a stuffed rabbit to her chest. She couldn't have been more than 5 years old. "Hey, sweetheart." I knelt down immediately, my heart twisting at the terror in her wide brown eyes. "Are you lost?" She didn't answer, just stared at me with those impossibly large eyes, her bottom lip quivering. I glanced around the restaurant, searching for frantic parents, but the dinner crowd was absorbed in their own worlds. No one seemed to notice the frightened child except me. "It's okay," I said softly, reaching out slowly like I would to a wounded animal. "You're safe. Can you tell me your name?" Nothing. Not even a whisper. She took a hesitant step toward me, then another, until she was close enough that I could see the expensive fabric of her navy dress, the designer shoes that probably cost more than my rent. Whoever she belonged to had money. Serious money. "Let's find your family, okay?" I kept my voice gentle, soothing. "They must be worried about you." The child's eyes flooded with fresh tears, and before I could react, she threw her small arms around my neck and buried her face against my shoulder. Her whole body shook with silent sobs. My chest tightened. I wrapped my arms around her instinctively, one hand stroking her hair. "Shh, it's all right. I've got you." That's when I felt it, the shift in the air. The temperature seemed to drop. Conversations around us quieted to murmurs. I looked up and found myself staring into the most dangerous pair of eyes I'd ever seen. He stood in the entrance like he owned not just the restaurant but the entire city block, tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in a black suit that probably cost more than my car. His dark hair was perfectly styled, his jaw sharp enough to cut glass, but it was his eyes that held me frozen storm gray and absolutely ruthless, scanning the room with predatory focus until they landed on the child in my arms. Something flickered across his face. Relief, rage, fear. Then his gaze shifted to me, and I felt the impact like a physical blow. Time stopped. I couldn't breathe, couldn't move. The world narrowed to just him and the intensity of his stare, assessing, calculating, seeing straight through every defense I'd ever built. 3 men in dark suits materialized behind him, their hands hovering near their jackets in a way that made my pulse spike with primal warning. These weren't businessmen. They were predators. The man strode forward, and the crowd parted like water. No one spoke. No one even seemed to breathe. He stopped 3 feet away, and I realized with a jolt that I was still on my knees, still holding his daughter because she had to be his daughter. The resemblance was unmistakable, like a shield against whatever violence radiated from him. "Isabella." His voice was low, rough, carrying an Italian accent that wrapped around the name like silk and steel. A command, not a question. The little girl's grip on me tightened. I should have been terrified. Every instinct screamed at me to hand her over and run. But something in his eyes beneath the fury and the ice looked almost broken. "She was scared," I said quietly, surprised by how steady my voice sounded. "I was just trying to help her." His jaw clenched. For a heartbeat, I thought he might lash out, might destroy me for daring to touch what belonged to him. But then his expression shifted, softened by a fraction so small I almost missed it. "Isabella," he said it again, gentler this time, and held out his hand. "Vieni qui, principessa." The child turned her head slightly, peeking at him through her curls. Fresh tears spilled down her cheeks, but she made no sound, not a single cry. Understanding crashed over me like cold water. She was mute. The realization must have shown on my face because something flickered in his eyes, pain, guilt, something raw and human beneath the monster's mask. "It's okay," I whispered to Isabella, brushing her hair back. "Your papa is here. You're safe now." I carefully loosened her grip and guided her toward him. The moment her small hand touched his entire demeanor transformed. He sank to one knee with a grace that seemed impossible for a man his size, and pulled her into his arms with a tenderness that stole my breath. He murmured something in rapid Italian against her hair, his large hand cradling the back of her head. For just a moment, he wasn't a dangerous man in an expensive suit. He was just a father holding his terrified child. Then he looked at me over Isabella's shoulder, and the mask slammed back into place. "Thank you." The words were simple, but they carried weight. Obligation, a debt acknowledged. I stood slowly, my knees weak. She was crying. I couldn't just, "What's your name?" The question cut through my rambling. Direct. Absolute. "Elena," I said before I could think better of it. "Elena Russo." He studied me for a long moment, still holding his daughter, his gray eyes cataloging every detail of my face like he was committing it to memory, or deciding whether I was a threat. "Dante Moretti." He stood, lifting Isabella with him like she weighed nothing. "You showed my daughter kindness when she needed it. That matters." The way he said it made it sound like a vow. One of his men stepped forward and whispered something urgent in his ear. Dante's expression hardened, and he gave a curt nod. When he looked back at me, something had changed, a decision made, a door opened that couldn't be closed. "You will come to my home tomorrow evening," he said. It wasn't a request. "Isabella has taken to you. That is rare. I don't think. 7 o'clock. My driver will collect you." He reached into his jacket, and I flinched despite myself. But he only pulled out a business card. Matte black with silver lettering. No title. Just a name and a phone number. He pressed it into my hand, his fingers brushing mine for half a second. The contact sent electricity racing up my arm. "Don't be late, Elena Russo." Then he was gone, his men surrounding him like a living wall as they swept out of the restaurant with Isabella tucked safely against his chest. I stood frozen in the lobby, the black card burning in my palm, my heart hammering against my ribs. Around me, the restaurant slowly came back to life. Conversations resumed, waiters moved, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something fundamental had just shifted in my world. I looked down at the card in my trembling hand. Dante Moretti. I didn't need to Google the name to know I'd just stumbled into something dangerous. The question was whether I was brave enough or foolish enough to show up tomorrow night. I spent the entire next day trying to convince myself not to go. The black card sat on my kitchen counter like a loaded gun. I'd Googled Dante Moretti at 3 in the morning, unable to sleep, and found exactly what I'd feared: articles about real estate empires and shipping companies, charity galas and city council donations. The kind of legitimate business that looked perfect on paper. Too perfect. The comment sections told a different story. Whispers of the Moretti family's traditional business interests. Speculation about connections to organized crime. One article from 5 years ago about a federal investigation that went nowhere. Witnesses who disappeared. Evidence that vanished. I should have thrown the card away. Should have called in sick to work and pretended Tuesday night never happened. Instead, at 6:30, I was standing in front of my closet in my underwear, trying to figure out what one wore to a mafia boss's house. The knock on my door at 6:50 made me jump. I opened it to find a man in a pristine black suit, his expression professionally blank. "Miss Russo? Mr. Moretti sent me to collect you." My mouth went dry. I didn't say I was coming. Mr. Moretti was quite certain you would. Something that might have been amusement flickered in his eyes. "The car is waiting." I glanced back at my small apartment, safe, ordinary, mine. Then I thought of Isabella's tear-stained face, her small arms wrapped around my neck, the way she'd trembled against me. I grabbed my purse and followed him downstairs. The car was a sleek black Mercedes, with windows so dark I couldn't see inside. The driver opened the back door, and I slid in, my heart racing. The leather seats smelled like expensive cologne and danger. We drove through the city as twilight painted the sky in shades of amber and violet. I watched familiar streets give way to unfamiliar ones, the buildings growing larger, more opulent. We passed through gates that opened automatically, climbed a hill where houses became estates, where money whispered instead of shouted. Finally, we turned onto a private road lined with ancient oak trees. The Moretti mansion rose before us like something from a Gothic romance, all stone and iron, windows glowing gold against the darkening sky. It was beautiful and terrifying in equal measure. "We've arrived, Miss Russo." I forced myself to breathe as the driver opened my door. A woman in her 50s stood at the entrance, her silver hair pulled into an elegant bun, her expression warm but assessing. "Miss Russo, welcome. I'm Teresa, Mr. Moretti's housekeeper. Please, come in." The entrance hall stole my breath. Marble floors gleamed under, crystal chandeliers. A grand staircase curved upward like something from a dream. Art that probably belonged in museums hung on the walls. This wasn't just wealth. This was power that spanned generations. Mr. Moretti is in his study, Teresa said. But first, someone has been waiting for you. She led me down a hallway to a set of double doors, pushed them open, and I found myself in a library that looked like it held thousands of books. And there, sitting on a velvet couch with her stuffed rabbit, was Isabella. She looked up as I entered, and her entire face transformed. She scrambled off the couch and ran to me, launching herself at my legs with such force I stumbled backward. I caught her automatically, lifting her up, and she wrapped her arms around my neck exactly like she had the night before. My heart cracked open. "Hey, sweetheart," I whispered. "I'm so happy to see you too." She pulled back just enough to look at my face, her brown eyes searching mine. Then she touched my cheek with one small hand and smiled. God, she was beautiful when she smiled. "I see you've arrived." The voice sent shivers down my spine. I turned, still holding Isabella, and found Dante standing in the doorway. He'd changed from his suit into dark slacks and a white dress shirt rolled up to his elbows, revealing forearms corded with muscle. Somehow, he looked even more dangerous this way, less businessman, more predator. "She missed you," he said quietly, watching his daughter cling to me. "She stood at the window for an hour waiting." Guilt twisted in my chest. "I almost didn't come. But you did." He moved into the room with that same predatory grace, stopping a few feet away. "That says something about who you are. Or how stupid I am." The corner of his mouth quirked up, not quite a smile, but close. "Perhaps both." Isabella squirmed in my arms, and I set her down carefully. She immediately grabbed my hand and started pulling me toward the couch, toward her pile of picture books. "She wants you to read to her," Dante said. "She's been collecting books all day." I let Isabella drag me to the couch, and she climbed into my lap like she'd done it 1,000 times before. She handed me a book about a princess and a dragon, then settled back against my chest with her rabbit. For a moment, I forgot about danger and crime families and the impossibly dangerous man watching us. I just read to a little girl who couldn't speak but could feel everything. I was halfway through the story when I felt Dante sit down on the couch beside us. Not too close, but close enough that I could feel his presence like heat from a fire. Isabella glanced at him, then snuggled deeper against me, completely content. "She hasn't done this since her mother died," Dante said softly. "Let anyone hold her, touch her. 2 years, Elena." I looked up from the book and found him staring at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Gratitude. Confusion. Something darker underneath. "What happened?" I asked quietly. His jaw clenched. "A car accident. Isabella was in the back seat. She saw everything." He paused, his voice dropping to barely a whisper. "She hasn't spoken since." "Oh God. I've hired specialists," he continued. "The best doctors money can buy. Therapists, psychiatrists, speech pathologists. Nothing works. She just locks everyone out." I looked down at Isabella, at her small body curled trustingly against mine, and felt tears burn behind my eyes. "Everyone except you," Dante said. "So I need to ask you something, Elena Russo, and I need you to think very carefully before you answer." I met his gaze, and the intensity in those gray eyes pinned me in place. "I want to hire you to take care of Isabella, to be here when she needs you, to help her heal." He leaned forward slightly. "Name your price, whatever you want, it's yours." "I'm not a nanny," I said. "I'm not qualified. You're what she needs. That's the only qualification that matters. You don't even know me." "I know enough." His voice hardened. "I know you comforted a frightened child when no one else noticed her. I know my daughter trusts you, which means you can be trusted. And I know you're scared of me right now, but you came anyway." He wasn't wrong about any of it. "What if I say no?" I whispered. Dante held my gaze for a long moment. "Then I'll have my driver take you home, and you'll never hear from me again." He glanced at Isabella, and something that looked like pain crossed his face. "But she will lose the only person who's reached her in 2 years." It was manipulation. Emotional blackmail. I knew it, and he knew I knew it, but it was also the truth. I looked down at Isabella, already half asleep against my chest, her small hand fisted in my shirt like she was afraid I'd disappear. "Okay," I heard myself say. "I'll do it." Dante's expression didn't change, but I saw something flash in his eyes. Relief. Triumph. "Good." He stood, towering over us. "Teresa, we'll show you to your room. You start tomorrow." "My room?" I blinked up at him. "I have an apartment. You'll live here. Isabella needs consistency." He said it like it was already decided. Your things will be collected tomorrow. Anything you need will be provided. You can't just— I can, Elena. And I am. He leaned down, his face suddenly close enough that I could see flecks of silver in his gray eyes. Welcome to the family. Then he was gone, leaving me sitting in a library that cost more than my entire life, holding a little girl who'd already stolen my heart, wondering what the hell I'd just agreed to. My room was bigger than my entire apartment. Teresa had led me upstairs after Isabella finally fell asleep in my arms, Dante carrying his daughter to bed with a tenderness that contradicted everything I knew about him. The housekeeper showed me to a suite at the end of the east wing. A bedroom with silk curtains and a 4-poster bed. An attached bathroom with a tub that could fit 3 people. A walk-in closet that echoed when I stepped inside. Mr. Moretti had some things brought in for you, Teresa said, gesturing to the closet where expensive clothes I definitely hadn't owned that morning hung in neat rows. He estimated your size. If anything doesn't fit, just let me know. I stared at designer dresses, silk blouses, cashmere sweaters. This is too much. Teresa's expression softened. Mr. Moretti takes care of what belongs to him. You're here for Isabella, which means you're under his protection now. That comes with certain expectations. The way she said protection made it sound like a gilded cage. Get some rest, she continued. Isabella usually wakes around 7. She'll want to see you. Then I was alone in a room that felt like a museum, staring at a life that wasn't mine, wondering what I'd walked into. I didn't sleep. At 2 a.m, I gave up and wrapped myself in the silk robe I'd found in the bathroom. Of course it fit perfectly and padded out into the hallway. The mansion was different at night. Shadows pooled in corners. The chandeliers were dimmed to a soft glow. Somewhere in the distance, I heard voices speaking Italian in low, urgent tones. I should have stayed in my room. Instead, I found myself drawn downstairs, following the sound of those voices until I stood outside a heavy oak door that was slightly ajar. Golden light spilled through the crack. Don't care what Castellano wants, Dante's voice, hard as iron. He touches anything of mine, he dies. Make sure he understands that. He's asking questions about the girl. Another man's voice, older, says it's suspicious. You bringing someone new into the house right now. Let him ask. Elena is here for Isabella. That's all anyone needs to know. And if he doesn't believe that? A pause, long enough that I held my breath. Then he'll learn why people don't question me twice. Ice flooded my veins. This was real. The violence, the danger, it wasn't speculation or rumor. It was standing on the other side of a door, discussing murder like other people discussed weather. I stepped back, my heart hammering, and collided with something solid. A hand clamped over my mouth before I could scream. Don't. The word was breathed against my ear, and I recognized the voice one of Dante's men from the restaurant. You shouldn't be here. He removed his hand slowly, and I spun to face him. In the dim light, I could see he was younger than I'd thought. Maybe 30, with dark hair and eyes that assessed me clinically. I couldn't sleep, I whispered. So you decided to eavesdrop on a private conversation? His expression gave nothing away. Stupid or brave, haven't decided which yet. I wasn't. The door opened. Dante stood there, still in his dress shirt but with the sleeves rolled up, his hair slightly disheveled like he'd been running his hands through it. His eyes landed on me, and something dangerous flickered across his face. Marco, leave us. The young man nodded and disappeared down the hallway without a word. Dante stepped back, holding the door open. Inside. Now. It wasn't a request. I walked into what was clearly his private study, all dark wood and leather, walls lined with books and artwork that probably cost millions. 3 other men sat in chairs near the fireplace, their conversation cut off mid-sentence. Out, Dante said without looking at them. They left immediately, closing the door behind them. The silence that followed was suffocating. Dante moved to the bar cart and poured amber liquid into 2 glasses. He handed one to me, and I took it automatically, my hands trembling. Drink, he commanded. I did. The whiskey burned down my throat, but it steadied me. What did you hear? His voice was deceptively calm. Nothing. I mean, I didn't understand. I wasn't trying to. Elena. He said my name like a warning. What did you hear? I met his eyes and saw no mercy there, just cold calculation. You were talking about someone named Castellano. About protecting what's yours. I lifted my chin. About killing people who ask too many questions. He studied me for a long moment, then nodded slowly. And now you're afraid? Yes. Good. You should be. He moved closer, and I forced myself not to retreat. Do you know what I do, Elena? What my family really does? I can guess. Then you know that everything you heard tonight, every word could get you killed if the wrong people knew you heard it. He was close enough now that I had to tilt my head back to meet his last gaze. You're in my world now. There's no going back to your apartment, your normal life. Do you understand? My throat went dry. You said I could leave. I lied. He set his glass down on the desk behind me, caging me in with his arms. The moment you walked through my door, you became mine to protect, mine to keep safe. Because if my enemies think you matter to me, and they will, they'll use you to get to me. I don't matter to you. I'm just here for Isabella. Something that might have been amusement flickered in his eyes. Keep telling yourself that, amore. The endearment sent heat flooding through me, unwanted and dangerous. I should have said no, I whispered. Yes, he agreed. You should have, but you didn't. And now you're going to stay in this house, under my protection, and you're going to help my daughter heal. His voice dropped lower. And you're going to learn that there are worse things than being owned by a man like me. Like what? Like wanting me to own you. His words hung in the air between us, electric and terrifying. I could feel the heat of his body, smell his cologne mixed with whiskey, see the pulse beating at his throat. I should have been planning my escape, should have been terrified. Instead, I was holding my breath, waiting for him to close the distance between us. He didn't. He stepped back, releasing me from the cage of his arms, and the loss of his heat felt like abandonment. Go back to bed, Elena. He turned away, moving to the window that overlooked the dark grounds. Isabella will want you in the morning, and from now on, you don't leave your room at night. My men patrol the hallways. They've been ordered not to hurt you, but they don't know you yet. They might make mistakes. It was a warning and a threat wrapped in concern. I walked to the door on shaking legs, then paused with my hand on the handle. Dante? Yes? Yes. What if I want to leave? Really leave? What happens then? He was silent for so long I thought he wouldn't answer. When he finally spoke, his voice was soft and absolutely certain. Then I'll let you go. But first, I'll make sure you understand exactly what you're walking away from. I fled back to my room and locked the door, even though I knew it wouldn't keep him out if he wanted in. Nothing would. I'd walked into a gilded prison. The terrifying part was that I wasn't sure I wanted to escape. Isabella transformed my life in 24 hours. She woke me at dawn by climbing into my bed and curling against me like a kitten. I'd held her close, breathing in the scent of her lavender shampoo, and felt something in my chest crack wider. By breakfast, she'd claimed me completely holding my hand as we walked to the dining room, sitting in my lap while she ate tiny bites of pancakes, following me everywhere like I might disappear if she let me out of her sight. Dante watched it all with an expression I couldn't read. He joined us for breakfast, impeccably dressed in another expensive suit, his hair perfectly styled. He looked nothing like the dangerous man who'd caged me against his desk last night, but I could feel the weight of his gaze every time he looked at me, could sense the predator beneath the civilized facade. Isabella has speech therapy at 10, he said, cutting into his omelet with surgical precision. Teresa will drive you. You're not coming? The question slipped out before I could stop it. His eyes met mine. I have business to attend to. The kind of business that involved men like Castellano. Violence and threats and death. I looked away first. The therapist's office was in an upscale medical building downtown, all glass and modern art. Doctor Sarah Chen was a petite woman in her 40s with kind eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. She smiled when she saw Isabella, but the smile dimmed when Isabella immediately hid behind me. This is new, Doctor, Chen said. She's usually withdrawn, but not clingy. She is with Elena, Teresa explained. It's why Mr. Moretti hired her. Doctor, Chen's eyes sharpened with interest. May I speak with you privately, Miss Russo? We left Isabella in a playroom with Teresa watching through a window, and Doctor Chen led me to her office. I've been working with Isabella for 18 months, she said once we were seated. I've tried everything, play therapy, art therapy, EMDR. Nothing breaks through her. Trauma. She leaned forward. Until you, apparently. What's your background? Psychology? Child development? I'm a restaurant hostess, I admitted. I was kind to her. That's all. That's not all. Dr. Chen studied me carefully. Traumatized children don't attach to people randomly. They respond to something authentic. Whatever you did, whatever you are, Isabella recognized safety in you. Safety. What a joke. I was living with a man who ordered murders before breakfast. I need you to understand something, Dr. Chen continued. Isabella's trauma is severe. Witnessing her mother's death, the violence of it, she's locked her voice away to protect herself. Getting it back won't be quick or easy. I know. Do you? Because Mr. Moretti has resources most parents don't. He's used to solving problems with money and power, but this isn't something he can control or buy his way out of. Her expression softened. Isabella needs time, patience, and someone who won't disappear when things get difficult. The words hit harder than she'd intended. I'm not going anywhere, I said, and realized I meant it. We returned to find Isabella sitting in Teresa's lap, clutching her rabbit, staring at the door like she'd been waiting for me to come back. When she saw me, her whole face lit up. Doctor. Chen watched the reunion with professional interest. Well, she murmured. This will be interesting. By the time we returned to the mansion, it was nearly 2. Isabella had fallen asleep in her car seat, exhausted from the therapy session. I carried her upstairs to her room, a princess fantasy of pale pink and white, with toys that probably cost more than my car, and tucked her into bed. She caught my hand before I could leave, her brown eyes pleading. I'll stay, I whispered. I promise. I curled up on the window seat with a book from her shelf and watched her sleep. Outside, manicured grounds stretched toward distant walls. Beautiful. Isolated. A fortress disguised as a paradise. I must have dozed off, because I woke to the sound of raised voices downstairs. Isabella was still asleep, her breathing soft and even. I slipped out of her room and moved to the top of the stairs, where I could hear without being seen. Don't care about your concerns, Luca. Dante's voice. Hard and cold. Elena stays. End of discussion. She's a security risk. A man's voice I didn't recognize. We know nothing about her family, her background, her connections. For all we know, Castellano sent her. Castellano didn't send a 26-year-old restaurant hostess to infiltrate my house through my traumatized daughter. Dante's tone could have cut glass. Elena is exactly what she appears to be, a woman who showed kindness to a child in need. And you brought her into your home, gave her access to Isabella. To you. Luca's voice rose. Dante, you're not thinking clearly. This woman. The sound of a blow, flesh striking flesh, cut him off. Never, Dante said, his voice deadly quiet. Question my judgment again. Silence. Now get out, and tell the others anyone who threatens Elena answers to me personally. I heard footsteps, a door slamming, then nothing. I should have moved, should have gone back to Isabella's room before anyone caught me listening again, but my legs wouldn't work. I stood frozen at the top of the stairs, my mind reeling. Dante had defended me, violently, against his own people. Why? You can come down, Elena. I jumped. His voice carried up the stairwell, calm now, like he hadn't just struck someone for questioning him. I descended slowly, finding him standing in the foyer, his suit jacket gone, his white shirt stained with what I hoped wasn't blood. His knuckles were scraped. How did you know I was there? I asked. I always know where you are. He said it like it was the most natural thing in the world. It's my job to protect you now. From your own men? From everyone. He moved closer, and I saw something darken, his eyes. There are people who want to hurt me, Elena, who would use anything, anyone I care about as a weapon. That includes you now. I don't understand. You barely know me. I know enough. He reached out and tucked a strand of hair behind my ear, the gesture so gentle it made my breath catch. And more importantly, Isabella knows you. That makes you precious to me. Worth protecting. Worth killing for. That's insane. That's my world. His hand lingered near my face, his thumb brushing my cheekbone. And you're part of it now, whether you like it or not. I should have been terrified, should have demanded he let me go. Instead, I found myself leaning into his touch. There was a man this morning, Dante said quietly, taking pictures of the house from across the street. One of my men questioned him. He was asking about you, about the new woman living here. Cold fear washed over me. Who sent him? That's what I'm going to find out. His expression hardened. Until then, you don't leave the grounds without me or my men. You don't go anywhere alone. You stay where I can keep you safe. This is crazy. I'm nobody. Why would anyone? You're not nobody anymore, Amor. He dropped his hand, and I immediately missed the warmth. You're the woman living in Dante Moretti's house. The woman his daughter loves. That makes you a target. That makes you mine to protect. There it was again. That word. Mine. It should have terrified me. Instead, it sent heat curling through my stomach. What if I don't want to be yours? I whispered. Dante smiled then, slow and dangerous. Then you'd better stop looking at me like you want me to kiss you. He walked away before I could respond, leaving me standing in the foyer with my heart racing and my body burning. I touched my lips and wondered when I'd started wanting something so dangerous. 3 days passed in a strange sort of domestic bliss. I fell into a rhythm with Isabella mornings in the garden where she showed me flowers and butterflies, afternoons reading in the library, evenings watching movies while she curled against me. She communicated through gestures and expressions, her eyes saying everything her voice couldn't. And slowly, gradually, I learned her language. Dante watched us like he was memorizing every moment. He joined us for meals when he was home, asking about our day, telling Isabella stories about his own childhood in Italy. Sometimes he'd touch my hand when passing the salt, or let his gaze linger on my face a moment too long, and I'd feel that electric current running between us. But at night, he disappeared into his study with his men, and I'd hear voices speaking in low Italian, phone calls that lasted hours, the sound of violence lurking just beneath the surface of this beautiful life. On the 4th morning, everything changed. I woke to find Isabella's bed empty. Panic hit me like a physical blow. I ran into the hallway, calling her name uselessly, my heart hammering. The mansion was too big, too many rooms, too many places a small child could hide or get hurt, or I found her in Dante's study. The door was open, and she stood in the center of the room in her nightgown, staring at something on the floor. At first, I didn't understand what I was seeing. Then my brain processed the image and horror flooded through me. Blood, a large pool of it, spreading across the hardwood floor. And a body, a man I didn't recognize, face down, completely still. Isabella. I rushed forward and scooped her up, spinning her away from the sight. Don't look, sweetheart, don't look. But it was too late. She'd seen everything. Her small body went rigid in my arms, her eyes wide with terror, and I felt her starting to hyperventilate, the same way she must have when she watched her mother die. Teresa, I screamed. Someone help! Footsteps thundered down the hallway. Marco appeared first, gun drawn, his expression going dark when he saw the study. Then Teresa, gasping, and finally Dante, moving past everyone to get to us. Elena. His voice was controlled, but I could hear the fury underneath. Take Isabella to her room. Now. What happened? Why is there, now? The command cracked through the air like a whip. I ran. I carried Isabella upstairs, my mind reeling, my hands shaking. In her room, I pulled her onto my lap and held her tight, rocking her back and forth while she trembled violently against me. It's okay, I whispered, even though nothing was okay. You're safe. I've got you. I won't let anything hurt you. She clutched my shirt with both fists, her silent sobs breaking my heart. I don't know how long we sat there. Eventually, Teresa appeared with warm milk and gentle words, helping me calm Isabella enough to get her back into bed. The little girl wouldn't let go of my hand, wouldn't close her eyes unless I was right there beside her. So I stayed, stroking her hair, singing softly, pretending my world hadn't just tilted on its axis. When she finally fell into exhausted sleep, I found Dante standing in the doorway. His shirt was gone. He wore only his slacks, and I could see dark stains on his skin that might have been blood. His expression was carved from stone. Outside, he said quietly. We need to talk. I kissed Isabella's forehead and followed him into the hallway, pulling the door shut behind me. What the hell was that? I kept my voice low, but fury shook through every word. A dead body? In your study? Where your daughter could find it? It wasn't supposed to happen like that. His jaw clenched. Castellano sent one of his men to deliver a message. Things got complicated. Complicated? I laughed, the sound bordering on hysterical. A man is dead in your study. Isabella saw it. She's traumatized again. How is that just complicated? Elena, no. I stepped back when he reached for me. Don't you dare touch me right now. You brought me here to help Isabella heal, and now, my voice cracked. She saw a dead body, Dante. Just like she saw her mother die. Do you have any idea what you've done? Pain flashed across his face, quick and raw. You think I don't know what I've done? I think you care more about your power and your territory than about your own daughter's well-being. The words hung in the air between us like a slap. Dante's expression went blank. When he spoke, his voice was perfectly controlled. Get dressed. My driver will take you home. You'll receive a generous severance payment. What? No. Confusion replaced anger. I'm not leaving. Yes, you are. This was a mistake. I never should have brought you here. Dante, you were right. He turned away, facing the wall like he couldn't look at me. I'm too dangerous. My world is too violent. Isabella deserves better. You deserve better. Understanding crashed over me. He wasn't angry. He was devastated. I stepped closer, placing my hand on his bare back. His skin was warm, scarred in places I hadn't noticed before. He flinched at the contact but didn't pull away. I'm not leaving, I said softly. Isabella needs me, and despite what you think, you're not getting rid of me that easily. Elena, you saw what happens in my life. Death and violence, that's normal for me. It'll happen again. I can't protect you from what I am. I'm not asking you to. I moved around to face him, forcing him to meet my eyes. I'm asking you to let me help, to let me be here for Isabella, to stop trying to push me away because you're scared. I'm not scared, liar. I reached up and touched his face, feeling the muscle jump in his jaw. You're terrified that if I stay, I'll get hurt. Or worse. But I'm choosing this, Dante. I'm choosing her. And I'm choosing... I stopped myself just in time. His eyes searched mine, storm gray and intense. Choosing what? The truth sat on my tongue, dangerous and undeniable, that I was choosing him, that somewhere in the past 4 days, I'd stopped being afraid and started feeling something else entirely. Just let me stay, I whispered. Please. For a long moment, he didn't move. Then he pulled me against his chest, his arms wrapping around me with desperate strength. Dio, you're going to destroy me, he murmured against my hair. You and Isabella both. I held him tighter. Then we'll destroy each other. We stood like that for minutes or hours, two broken people clinging to each other in a hallway outside a child's room, while danger circled closer, and my heart betrayed everything I'd thought I believed about right and wrong. When we finally pulled apart, something fundamental had shifted between us. The man in my study was alive when he arrived, Dante said quietly. He tried to take Isabella, said Castellana wanted her as leverage. His voice dropped to something deadly. I made sure he'd never try again. Ice and heat flooded through me simultaneously. He'd killed to protect his daughter, to protect what was his. Good. I heard myself say. Dante's eyes widened slightly. Then he smiled a real smile, not the practiced one he showed the world. Go back to Isabella, he said. I'll have someone clean the study. And Elena? Yes? Thank you. For choosing us. He walked away, disappearing down the stairs. And I realized with terrifying clarity that I wasn't just choosing to stay for Isabella anymore. I was falling for a man who killed people in his study before breakfast. And I didn't know how to stop. I woke to sunlight streaming through my windows and the feeling of being watched. Dante sat in the armchair near my bed, dressed in workout clothes, his hair still damp from a shower. He held a cup of coffee, and his eyes were tracking me with an intensity that made my breath catch. How long have you been there? My voice came out rougher than intended. An hour. Maybe 2. He set the coffee down. You talk in your sleep. Heat flooded my face. What did I say? My name. His smile was slow and wicked. Several times. In ways that were... interesting. I pulled the covers up to my chin, mortified. You shouldn't be in here. Probably not. He stood and moved to the bed, sitting on the edge. But I needed to see you, to make sure you were real. That yesterday actually happened. Yesterday, when I'd held him in the hallway, when I'd chosen to stay despite the violence, when everything changed. Isabella's still sleeping, he continued. Teresa is with her. I thought we could talk. Alone. About what? About why you're really here. He reached out and tucked my hair behind my ear, the gesture already becoming familiar. Not the official reason, the real one. I sat up slowly, acutely aware I was wearing only a thin nightgown. I told you. Isabella needed help. Yes, but you could have walked away after that first night. After seeing what I am, what my world is, His hand moved to my cheek, his thumb brushing my lower lip. Yet you stayed. Why? The truth felt dangerous on my bragging tongue. Maybe I'm stupid, I whispered. Try again. Maybe I like feeling needed. Warmer. His eyes searched mine, but still not the truth. I caught his wrist, holding his hand against my face. Maybe I'm tired of being invisible, of living a small, safe life that doesn't matter to anyone. And when you looked at me when Isabella held on to me like I was the only thing keeping her from drowning, I felt important for the first time in my life. Dante's expression softened. You think you were invisible before? I know I was. I released his hand, looking away. My parents died when I was 19. No siblings, no close friends. I work at a restaurant where no one knows my name. I live in an apartment where my neighbors don't recognize me in the elevator. I've been alone for 7 years. Dante. Completely, utterly alone. Not anymore. The words were simple, but they carried weight. A promise. I met his eyes and saw something that terrified me. Not violence or danger, but something softer. Something that looked almost like tenderness. Tell me about Isabella's mother, I said, needing to change the subject before I did something reckless. What was she like? Dante's expression shuddered. That's a conversation that requires more coffee. He left and returned minutes later with a full carafe and 2 cups. We moved to the window seat, the morning sun painting everything gold, and he told me about Natalia. We married young, he said, staring out at the grounds. Too young. I was 23, still learning how to run the family business. She was 20, daughter of an allied family. It was arranged, but we were compatible. Did you love her? I cared for her, respected her. She gave me Isabella, which made her precious to me. He paused. But love? The kind of love that consumes you? No, we never had that. I sipped my coffee, processing this. What happened the night of the accident? Someone tampered with her car. The brakes failed on a mountain road. His voice went flat. Isabella was in her car seat in the back. She saw everything, the panic, the crash, the blood. Natalia died at the scene. Isabella walked away without a scratch. Who tampered with the car? I never found out. The admission seemed to cost him. Whoever did it covered their tracks perfectly. It could have been Castellano. Could have been any of a dozen enemies. I've spent 2 years looking, and I have nothing. The pain in his voice was palpable. Isabella blames herself, he continued. The therapists say that's common in child survivors. She thinks if she'd warned her mother, if she'd said something, Natalia might have lived. So she stopped speaking, to punish herself, to stay in control. Tears burned behind my eyes. That's heartbreaking. Yes, he turned to me. But then you appeared. And for the first time in 2 years, I watched my daughter smile, watched her trust someone. That's why I'm willing to risk everything to keep you here. Elena, because you're helping her heal. And if I can't, if she never speaks again, then we'll find another way. He reached out and took my hand. Together. The word hung between us, full of possibility. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed. I'd left it on the nightstand, and Dante grabbed it automatically, glancing at the screen. His expression went dark. Who is Marcus Castellano? His voice was deadly quiet. My blood turned to ice. What? He held up the phone, showing me a text message. We need to talk about your situation. Call me. Marcus. I don't know any Marcus Castellano, I said quickly. I've never heard that name before yesterday. Dante's eyes bored into mine, searching for lies. Then why is he texting you? I don't know. How would he even have my number? He stood abruptly, my phone still in his hand. Marco, he shouted. His right-hand man appeared within seconds. Boss, trace this number. Find out how Marcus Castellano got Elena's contact information. And find out what the hell he wants with her. Dante's voice was pure command. Now. Marco took the phone and disappeared. Dante turned back to me, and I saw something terrible in his eyes. Suspicion. Doubt. Dante, I swear to you, I have no idea. Were you telling the truth earlier? About being alone? About having no family connections? His voice was controlled, but I could hear the danger underneath. Or are you working for him? The accusation hit like a slap. How dare you? I stood, anger replacing fear. I've been nothing but honest with you. I comforted your daughter. I stayed when any sane person would have run. I held you when you tried to push me away, and now you think I'm a spy? Someone gave him your number, Elena. Someone told him you're here. Well, it wasn't me. Tears spilled down my cheeks. Maybe you have a leak in your organization. Maybe one of your men is on his payroll. But I could never. My voice broke. Dante stared at me for a long moment, then closed his eyes. When he opened them again, the suspicion was gone, replaced by something that looked like self-loathing. Forgive me, he said quietly. This life makes me paranoid, makes me see enemies everywhere, even where there are none. I'm not your enemy. I know. He pulled me against him, his arms wrapping around me tightly. I know, amore. I'm sorry. I let him hold me, but something had cracked between us. A fracture line that might never fully heal. We'll find out how Castellano got your information, he murmured against my hair. And then I'll make sure he never contacts you again. I pulled back enough to look at him. What does he want? Me. Dante's expression went cold. He wants to take everything I have. My territory, my business, my power. And now that he knows you're here, he wants to use you to get to me. Then send me away. Keep me safe by keeping me far from you. No. The word was absolute. You stay here, where I can protect you, where I go, can watch over you. You're mine now, Elena. And I protect what's mine. There it was again. That possessive claim that should have terrified me. Instead, it made me feel safe. Besides, he added, a dark smile crossing his face, if Castellano thinks he can use you against me, he's about to learn a very painful lesson about what happens when someone threatens my family. My family, not just Isabella. Me too. I was part of his world now. Part of his dangerous, violent, beautiful world. And God help me, I didn't want to leave. The text message from Marcus Castellano changed everything. Within hours, the mansion became a fortress. More guards appeared on the grounds. Security cameras were installed in every hallway. Dante's men moved through the house like shadows, armed and alert, and I wasn't allowed to leave the East Wing without an armed escort. I'd become a prisoner in a gilded cage. Isabella sensed the tension immediately. She clung to me more desperately, her eyes following every stranger who walked past, her small body going rigid whenever she heard raised voices. The progress we'd made was unraveling, and there was nothing I could do to stop it. On the third night after the text, I found Dante in his study at midnight. He stood at the window overlooking the grounds, a glass of whiskey in his hand, his shoulders tight with stress. He'd removed his jacket and tie, and his white shirt was unbuttoned at the collar, revealing the strong column of his throat. You shouldn't be here, he said without turning around. It's not safe. Nowhere is safe anymore. I closed the door behind me and moved to stand beside him. And I'm tired of hiding. He looked at me then, and I saw exhaustion in his eyes. Lines of stress I hadn't noticed before. This was costing him too. Elena, tell me the truth, I interrupted. What does Castellano really want? Why is he coming after you now? Dante was silent for a long moment. Then he drained his whiskey and set the glass down, with deliberate care. 10 years ago, when I took over the family business, I made a decision, he said quietly. The Morettis had always operated a certain way: drugs, prostitution, protection rackets, the traditional criminal enterprises. He paused. I wanted something different, something cleaner. So I moved us into legitimate business. Real estate, shipping, investments. We still have our hands dirty in places, but nothing like before. And Castellano didn't approve? Castellano represents the old guard. Men who think I've gone soft, weak. Dante's voice hardened. He's been building alliances, gathering support. He wants to challenge my leadership, take over the Moretti territory, and return things to the way they were. So this is about power. It's always about power. He turned to face me fully. But it's also about Isabella. About you. Castellano knows the best way to destroy me is to hurt what I love. And now he's figured out that you're part of that equation. My breath caught. What you love? Dante reached out and cupped my face in both hands. Did you think I'd let just anyone live in my house? Sleep down the hall from my daughter? Sit at my table every morning? His thumbs brushed my cheekbones. You're not just here for Isabella anymore, Elena. You're here because I can't stand the thought of you being anywhere else. Dante, he kissed me. Not gently, not tentatively, but with weeks of restrained desire finally breaking free. His mouth claimed mine with bruising intensity. One hand sliding into my hair, the other pulling me against him. I gasped, and he took advantage, deepening the kiss until I couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't remember why this was dangerous. I kissed him back with equal desperation, my hands fisting in his shirt, years of loneliness and isolation pouring into this moment. He tasted like whiskey and danger and everything I'd been denying I wanted. When we finally broke apart, we were both breathing hard. I started. Inevitable, he finished. This has been building since the moment you held Isabella and looked at me like I was worth saving. I never thought that. Liar. He smiled against my lips, then kissed me again, softer this time. You see something in me that no one else does. Something human beneath the monster. And it terrifies me how much I want you to keep seeing it. I pulled back enough to look into his eyes. What if Castellano comes after me? What if staying here puts Isabella in more danger? Then I'll burn the city down to keep you both safe. He said it like a simple fact. There's nothing I won't do, Elena. No line I won't cross. You need to understand that. I do understand. That's what scares me. It should. His expression turned serious. Because once you're mine completely, there's no escape. I don't let go of what belongs to me. Ever. The possessiveness should have sent me running. Instead, it made heat pool low in my stomach. Show me, I whispered. Dante's eyes darkened. Show you what? Show me what it means to belong to you. For a heartbeat, he didn't move. Then he was lifting me, my legs wrapping around his waist, and carrying me across the study to his desk. He set me down on the edge, stepping between my thighs, his hands sliding up under my shirt. Once we do this, he said, his voice rough, everything changes. You'll be mine in every way. No going back. Are you sure? I answered by pulling him down into another kiss. The world exploded into sensation. His hands on my skin, rough and possessive. My nails digging into his shoulders. The desk hard beneath me. His mouth trailing fire down my neck. Every touch was a claim, a brand, a promise of ownership that should have terrified me, but only made me want more. We were so lost in each other that we didn't hear the door open. Boss, we have a... Oh, shit. We sprang apart. Marco stood in the doorway, his eyes carefully averted, his expression professionally blank. This better be important, Dante growled, not bothering to hide his frustration. Castellano's men just hit one of our warehouses. 3 dead, 2 missing. Marco's voice was grim. And they left a message. Says the next hit will be somewhere you care about more. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Dante's entire demeanor shifted. The man who'd been kissing me seconds ago disappeared, replaced by the ruthless boss who ordered murders before breakfast. Get every available man to the warehouse, he commanded. Double security here. No one gets in or out without my approval. And find out who our leak is. Someone told Castellano which warehouse to hit. Yes, boss. Marco hesitated. What about Miss Russo? She stays here, under guard. Dante turned to me. Go to your room. Lock the door. Don't open it for anyone except me or Teresa. I'm not a child to be sent away. Elena. He gripped my shoulders. 3 men are dead. Castellano is escalating. This isn't about power anymore, it's war. And you are the most valuable target he has. So please, for once, just do as I ask. The fear in his eyes convinced me. Okay. I whispered. But promise me you'll come back. Always. He kissed me hard and fast. I'll always come back to you. Then he was gone, Marco following, leaving me alone in a study that smelled like whiskey and danger in Dante's cologne. I went to my room like he'd asked, locked the door, and sat on my bed in the dark. 3 men were dead, more would follow, and somewhere out there, Marcus Castellano was planning his next move. I touched my lips, still swollen from Dante's kisses, and wondered if falling in love with a monster made me a monster too. The terrifying answer was that I didn't care anymore. Dante didn't come back that night, or the next morning. I woke to find 2 guards posted outside my door, and Teresa bringing breakfast with worried eyes. Isabella crawled into my bed at dawn, sensing my anxiety, and we spent the morning intense silence while I tried to pretend everything was fine. It wasn't fine. By noon, I couldn't take it anymore. I found Marco in the hallway, his expression grim. Where is he? I demanded. Boss's orders were clear. You stay in the East Wing. I don't care about his orders. Where is he? Marco studied me for a long moment. Then he sighed. Downtown. Meeting with the other families. Trying to build an alliance against Castellano before this turns into an all-out war. Is he safe? Dante's always safe. He's untouchable. But Marco's voice lacked conviction. I spent the afternoon trying to distract Isabella with games and books, but my mind was miles away, imagining Dante in a room full of dangerous men, negotiating with people who'd kill him if it served their interests. When the phone in my pocket buzzed, I nearly dropped it. Unknown number. Against every instinct, I answered, "Hello? Elena Russo." The voice was smooth, cultured, with just a hint of an Italian accent. "I've been wanting to speak with you." My blood turned to ice. "Who is this?" "You know who this is?" "Marcus Castellano." He paused. "And before you hang up, you should know I'm watching you right now. Standing at your window in the blue dress. Very lovely, by the way." I spun toward the window, my heart hammering. The grounds looked empty. But somewhere out there, someone was watching. "What do you want?" I forced my voice to stay steady. "To offer you a choice." His voice was pleasant, conversational. "You see, Dante has put you in a very dangerous position. By making you important to him, he's made you a target. And I'm afraid things are going to get much worse before they get better." "Is that a threat?" "It's a fact. Dante is losing support. His move toward legitimacy has made him weak in the eyes of the old families. They're ready to replace him with someone stronger. Someone like me." He paused. "When I take over, and I will take over, Dante and everyone loyal to him will die. Including you, unless you're smart. I'd never betray him." Castellano laughed. "Loyalty? How refreshingly naive. Let me explain something, Elena. You've known Dante for what, 2 weeks? You've fallen for the fiction he's created, the devoted father, the protective lover. But do you know how many people he's killed? How many families he's destroyed? How many children have been orphaned by his orders?" I didn't answer. "Dante Moretti is a monster," Castellano continued. "He's just better at hiding it than most of us. But you've seen glimpses, haven't you? The violence, the control, the way he claims ownership of you like your property. That's not, isn't it?" His voice turned sharp. "Has he given you a choice about anything? About staying? About being protected? About belonging to him? Or has he simply decided your fate and expected you to accept it?" The words hit harder than they should have. "Here's my offer," Castellano said. "Walk away, take Isabella, and leave. The mansion tonight. I'll provide safe passage and enough money to disappear anywhere you want. Start a new life. Away from this world. Away from Dante. And if I refuse, then you'll die with him when I take over. And Isabella will become my leverage raised by my people, used to legitimize my claim to the Moretti Empire." He let that sink in. "So choose carefully, Elena. Save yourself and the child, or die for a man you barely know." The line went dead. I stood frozen, phone clutched in my shaking hand, Castellano's words echoing in my head. He was right about some things. I barely knew Dante. 2 weeks wasn't enough time to understand someone's true nature. And Dante had been controlling, deciding I'd stay, claiming I belonged to him, making choices about my life without asking. But he'd also been tender with Isabella, protective of me, vulnerable in rare, precious moments when he let his guard down. Which was real? The monster or the man? "Elena?" I turned to find Isabella, standing in the doorway, her stuffed rabbit clutched to her chest, her brown eyes wide with concern. She'd sensed my distress like she always did. I knelt down and pulled her into my arms, holding her close. Could I really leave her to Castellano? Let her be raised by someone who saw her only as a tool? Could I stay and risk both our lives in a war that might be unwinnable? I was still holding Isabella when Dante finally came home. He looked exhausted, his suit rumpled, shadows under his eyes. But when he saw us, his expression softened. "Hey, Principessa," he said gently to Isabella. "Go find Teresa. She made your favorite cookies." Isabella looked between us uncertainly, then kissed my cheek and ran off. Dante moved closer, studying my face. "What happened?" Castellano called me. The words came out flat. He offered me a way out. Safe passage for me and Isabella if I leave tonight. Dante went completely still. And I want you to tell me the truth." I stood, facing him. "Who are you really, Dante? The man who holds his daughter with such love, or the monster who kills people in his study?" "Both." He didn't hesitate. "I'm both, Elena. I've always been both. How do I know which one I'm falling in love with?" The confession slipped out before I could stop it. Dante's expression cracked. "You're falling in love with me?" "I don't know. Maybe. I think so." I wrapped my arms around myself. But Castellano said, Castellano is a manipulator who wants to use your doubt against me. Dante moved closer. Yes, I've killed people. Yes, I've done terrible things. But everything I've done has been to protect what's mine, to build something better than what I inherited. And what about me? Do I get a choice in being yours? Or did you decide that for me too? You've always had a choice. His voice was rough. Every moment you stayed was a choice. Every time you didn't run was a choice. You chose this, Elena. You chose me. Did I? Or did you just make it impossible for me to leave? If you want to go, go. He stepped back, his expression hardening. Take Isabella. Take Castellano's offer. I won't stop you. You mean that? No. The admission was raw, but I'll let you anyway, because keeping you here against your will would destroy the one good thing in my life. You have to choose this. Choose me. Choose us. Tears spilled down my cheeks. This is insane. We barely know each other. I know enough. I know you're brave and kind, and you really see me in a way no one else does. I know Isabella loves you more than anyone since her mother died. And I know that without you, this house is just a prison, and I'm just a monster with no reason to be better. He moved closer, cupping my face in his hands. Stay, he whispered. Not because I'm forcing you, not because you're afraid of Castellano, but because you want to. Because somewhere in the past 2 weeks, you've become as essential to me as breathing. I looked into his storm-gray eyes and saw the truth, the vulnerability beneath the violence, the man beneath the monster. If I stay, I said quietly, if I choose this, I need you to promise me something. Anything. Promise me you'll let Isabella heal at her own pace, that you won't push her or try to control her recovery. I paused. And promise me you'll never lie to me about who you are or what you do. I need honesty, Dante. Even when it's ugly. I promise. He pressed his forehead against mine. Both things. I swear it. Then I'm staying. The decision felt like stepping off a cliff. God help me, I'm choosing you. Dante kissed me like a man dying of thirst, like I was oxygen and he'd been suffocating. When we finally broke apart, he pressed something into my hand. A key. To the study, he explained. To every room in this house. No more locked doors between us. No more secrets. I closed my fingers around the key and made my choice. I was Dante Moretti's woman now, for better or worse, in love and in war. And Marcus Castellano could go to hell. The attack came at dawn. Gunfire shattered the morning silence, and I woke to Dante already moving, pulling on clothes with military efficiency. He grabbed a gun from his nightstand when had I started sleeping in his room, and moved to the door. Stay here, he commanded. Lock the door behind me. Isabella, Marco's already getting her to the safe room. Stay. Here. He kissed me hard and fast, then was gone. I locked the door with shaking hands and pressed my ear against it, listening to chaos erupt below. Shouting in Italian, more gunfire, the sound of breaking glass. The mansion had become a war zone. I should have been terrified. Should have been hiding under the bed. Instead, I grabbed my phone and called the only person who might help. Elena. Castellano answered on the first ring. I was hoping you'd be smart. This ends now, I said, my voice stronger than I felt. Your men are attacking the house. Isabella is terrified. Dante is fighting for his life. And I'm done being a pawn in your power play. Then accept my offer. No. I cut him off. Here's my counteroffer. You call off your attack, you leave the Morettis alone, and I'll give you something you want more than territory. Silence. Then, I'm listening. Information. About Dante's business, his alliances, his weaknesses, everything you need to destroy him politically instead of violently. The lies tasted like ash on my tongue, but only if you promise Isabella stays safe. And only if you do it without more bloodshed. Another pause. Why would you betray him? Because I'm tired of living in fear. Because I want out of this life. I forced conviction into my voice. And because you were right, I barely know him. Why should I die for a monster? Castellano laughed. You're a better actress than I thought, Elena. But I'm not stupid. You love him. That's why you're making this desperate play. Think what you want. Do we have a deal? No deal. His voice turned cold. Dante Moretti dies today. And you die with him for choosing the wrong side. The line went dead. I'd failed. Castellano was too smart, and I was too transparent. But at least I'd tried. I grabbed the key Dante had given me and ran out of the room, ignoring his orders. The east wing was empty, the guards gone to fight. I sprinted to Isabella's room, my heart in my throat, praying Marco had gotten to her in time. The room was empty. Relief flooded through me until I heard the sound of muffled crying from the closet. I threw it open and found Isabella curled in the corner, her rabbit clutched to her chest, tears streaming down her face. Terror had frozen her in place instead of letting her run to safety. "Hey, sweetheart," I said gently, kneeling down. "I'm here. I've got you." She launched herself at me, and I caught her, holding her tight. More gunfire sounded from below, closer now. We needed to move. I carried Isabella into the hallway, and nearly collided with a man I didn't recognize. He wore all black, a gun in his hand, and his eyes went cold when he saw us. "The girl," he said in accented English. "Castellano wants her alive. Over my dead body. That can be arranged." He raised his gun, and I did the only thing I could think of. I threw myself sideways into Dante's study, slamming the door and locking it with Isabella clutched to my chest. "Elena," Dante's voice came from near the window. He was bleeding from a cut on his forehead, his shirt torn, but alive. "What the hell are you doing?" "Saving your daughter." I set Isabella down and pushed her toward him. "There's a man in the hallway. He wants to take her." Dante's expression turned murderous. He handed me a gun from his desk drawer. "Do you know how to use this? Point and shoot?" "Good enough." He moved to the door, motioning for me to get behind his desk with Isabella. "When I open this door, you protect her. Understand? Whatever happens to me, you protect her. Dante." The door exploded inward. 2 men rushed in, guns raised. Dante shot the first one before he could aim, but the second got a shot off. I heard Dante grunt in pain as he went down. "No!" The scream tore from my throat. The second man turned his gun toward Isabella and me. I didn't think, just raised the gun Dante had given me and pulled the trigger. The recoil shocked me, and my shot went wide. But it was enough to make the man duck, giving Dante time to shoot him from the floor. Then silence. I dropped the gun and ran to Dante, my hands shaking as I searched for the wound. Blood soaked through his shirt near his shoulder. "I'm fine," he gritted out. "It went through. I've had worse." "You're bleeding." "Elena." He grabbed my face, forcing me to look at him. "Isabella, is she safe?" I looked back and saw her standing behind the desk, her eyes huge, her rabbit fallen at her feet. She was staring at the bodies on the floor, at the blood, at everything her young. Mine shouldn't have to witness. "Sweetheart, don't look," I started to say, but then she opened her mouth. "Papa." The word was barely a whisper, rough from disuse, but unmistakable. Time stopped. Isabella ran to Dante, throwing herself at him. "Papa, papa, papa." She sobbed, the words tumbling out like a dam breaking. "Don't die. Please don't die. I love you. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." Dante caught her with his good arm, tears streaming down his face. "Principessa, my beautiful girl, you're talking. "I was scared," Isabella cried. "I saw Mama die and I thought if I talked it would happen again. But Elena said you'd always come back, and I thought you were dead. I thought, I'm here." Dante pressed his face into her hair. "I'm here, baby, and I'm never leaving you. Never." I watched them cling to each other, tears blurring my vision, and felt something break open in my chest. This was what I'd chosen. Not the violence or the danger, but this father and daughter finding each other again through love and terror. A family being healed by someone foolish enough to believe in them. Marco burst into the room, gun drawn, then stopped when he saw us. "Boss?" "Status," Dante commanded, still holding Isabella. "Castellano's men are retreating." We held them off. Marco's eyes landed on Isabella, shock crossing his face as he heard her whispering to Dante. "Is she—" "Get the doctor," Dante said. "And call the family. Tell them Dante Moretti just won a war." Marco left, and Dante finally looked at me. "Elena." His voice was rough with emotion. "Come here." I crawled to them, and Dante pulled me into their embrace with his good arm. Isabella grabbed my hand, pressing it to her wet cheek. "You saved us," she whispered. "Both of us." "No, sweetheart," I said softly. "You saved yourselves." I just reminded you how. We stayed like that, broken and bloody and perfect, while the sun rose over a city forever changed by the choices we'd God made. I'd chosen love over safety, chosen family over freedom, chosen a monster who was also a man, and a little girl who'd finally found her voice. And I'd never choose differently. The aftermath of war was quieter than I expected. Castellano died 3 days after the attack on the mansion. Officially, it was a heart attack. Unofficially, Dante's men made sure he'd never threaten us again. I didn't ask for details. Some things were better left in the darkness where they belonged. The other families fell in line quickly after that. Dante had proven he could defend his territory, protect his people, and destroy anyone who challenged him. The move toward legitimacy continued, but now everyone understood that beneath the businessman was still a predator. Isabella's voice came back slowly, tentatively. She still didn't speak much, but every word felt like a miracle. She called me Mama Elena on the 5th day, and I cried for an hour. Dante healed faster than seemed human. Within a week, he was back to running his empire, though he now did it from home whenever possible. We'd become inseparable, the three of us, a family forged in violence and sealed with love. But tonight, exactly 1 month after I'd first walked into Dante's world, he asked me to meet him in the garden at midnight. I found him standing under the pergola where roses bloomed white and red. He wore a simple black suit, and in the moonlight, he looked almost ethereal, dangerous, and beautiful in equal measure. "You look nervous," I said, moving to stand beside him. "I am." He took my hand, his thumb brushing over my knuckles. "I've faced down enemies, built an empire, survived attempts on my life, but asking you this terrifies me more than anything else ever has." My heart started racing. "Asking me what?" Dante turned to face me fully, and in his other hand, I saw a small velvet box. "Elena Russo." He sank to one knee, and I forgot how to breathe. "You walked into my life when I'd given up on anything good existing in this world. You loved my daughter when she was locked away in silence. You chose to stay when any sane person would have run. And you made me believe that even a monster like me deserves something beautiful." Tears spilled down my cheeks. "I know it's fast," he continued. "I know I'm asking you to bind yourself to a dangerous life, to a man who will always have enemies, to a world where violence is never far away. But I'm asking anyway." He opened the box, revealing a ring that caught the moonlight, a diamond surrounded by smaller stones that sparkled like stars. "Marry me. Be mine completely. Help me build something better than what I inherited. Help me be the man you see when you look at me." I dropped to my knees in front of him, framing his face with my hands. "Yes," I whispered. "Yes, yes, yes." He kissed me like he was starving, and I kissed him back with equal hunger. When we finally broke apart, he slid the ring onto my finger with shaking hands. "It was my grandmother's," he said softly. "The last Moretti woman who married for love instead of alliance. She'd like you, I think. Would approve of someone brave enough to choose this life." I looked at the ring, then at him. "I'm scared," I admitted. "Scared of what comes next. Of the danger, of losing you or Isabella, of not being strong enough for this. Fear is smart. Fear keeps you alive." He pressed his forehead against mine. "But love is stronger, and what we have, what we've built, is strong enough to survive anything." "Promise me something," I said. "Anything. Promise me we'll always be honest with each other, no matter how ugly the truth is, no matter how much it hurts. I need to know that when the world is falling apart, you'll never lie to me." "I promise." He sealed the vow with another kiss. Total honesty. Always. Even about the bodies buried in the East Garden? He pulled back, shock crossing his face. Then he laughed, a real, genuine laugh I'd rarely heard. "How did you—" Teresa mentioned the gardener wasn't allowed to dig in that section, and I put 2 and 2 together. I smiled. "I'm not judging. I'm just saying I know. And I'm still here." Dante shook his head, still grinning. "You're going to be the death of me, amore." "Probably. But you'll die happy." "Yes, I will." We walked back to the mansion, hand in hand, my engagement ring catching the light, my heart full of a joy I'd never thought I'd find. Isabella was waiting in the entrance hall, bouncing on her toes in her pajamas even though it was well past midnight. Teresa stood behind her, smiling. "Did she say yes?" Isabella asked, her voice still soft but growing stronger every day. Dante lifted his daughter into his arms. She said, "Yes, Principessa." Isabella threw her arms around both our necks. "Now we're a real family," she said. "Forever and ever." "Forever and ever," I echoed, and meant it. That night, after Isabella was asleep and the mansion was quiet, Dante led me to his room, our room now, and made love to me with a tenderness that stole my breath. Every touch was a promise, every kiss a claim, every whispered word of devotion, a vow more binding than any wedding ceremony. Afterward, we lay tangled together, my head on his chest, listening to his heartbeat. "Do you have regrets?" he asked quietly. "About choosing this life?" I thought about my small apartment, my invisible existence, the loneliness that had defined my life before Isabella wandered into that restaurant lobby. "Not even one," I said honestly. "You and Isabella, this family, you're everything I never knew I needed. Everything I was missing without realizing it." "Good." His arms tightened around me. "Because I'm never letting you go. You're mine now. Forever." "Forever," I agreed. Outside, the city slept, unaware that in a mansion on the hill, a monster had found redemption through love. A broken child had found her voice, and a lonely woman had found her home in the most unexpected place. We were a family forged in darkness, sealed with blood, and bound by love stronger than death. And every scar we carried was worth it for the life we'd built together. 6 months later. Epilogue. Isabella stood at the edge of the aisle, her flower girl dress a cascade of white silk, her dark curls crowned with tiny roses. She looked back at me with those big brown eyes, now full of light instead of trauma. "Ready, Mama Elena?" she asked clearly, her voice growing more confident every day. I adjusted my wedding dress ivory lace that Dante had chosen himself, and nodded. "Ready, sweetheart." The music started, and Isabella walked down the aisle scattering rose petals while guests from both the legitimate and illegitimate sides of Dante's empire watched. I'd learned to navigate both worlds now, to smile at politicians and mafia bosses alike, to know which conversations to hear and which to forget. Then I saw him. Dante stood at the altar in a black tuxedo, his expression transforming when he saw me. The ruthless boss disappeared, replaced by a man so full of love it took my breath away. Teresa walked me down the aisle, the closest thing I had to family, and placed my hand in Dante's. "Take care of her," Teresa whispered to him. "Or I'll poison your pasta." Dante's lips quirked. "Yes, ma'am." The ceremony was brief, the vows traditional, but when Dante slid the wedding band onto my finger next to my engagement ring and said, "With this ring, I claim you as mine for eternity," I knew this was no ordinary marriage. This was a blood oath, a binding, a forever promise in a world where forever was never guaranteed. "I now pronounce you husband and wife," the priest said. "You may kiss your bride." Dante pulled me against him and kissed me like we were alone, like the 100 witnesses didn't exist, like nothing mattered except this moment, and this love, and this impossible life we'd chosen. When we finally broke apart, Isabella threw herself at us, and we caught her together, a family completed. That night, after the reception and the dancing and the carefully veiled threats disguised as well-wishes from rival families, Dante carried me over the threshold of our bedroom. "Mrs. Moretti," he said, setting me down gently. "How does it feel?" I looked at the ring on my finger, at the man who'd given me everything, at the life I'd stepped into one random Tuesday when a frightened child had wandered into a restaurant. "It feels like coming home," I whispered, and it did. Not despite the darkness, but because of it. Because I'd learned that love doesn't always look like fairy tales. Sometimes it looks like blood on marble floors and midnight confessions and choosing to stay when anyone sensible would run. Sometimes it looks like a monster learning to be human through the eyes of a child. Sometimes it looks like a lonely woman finding her family in the most dangerous place imaginable. I'd walked into darkness and found light. I'd comforted a mute child and found my voice. I'd loved a monster and found a man, and I'd never, ever regret the night Dante Moretti made me part of his family.